Birthright is this wonderful free trip for young Jews if you're between, I think it's the ages of 18 and 26 maybe, and then you can go on an all-expense-paid trip to the wonderful state of Israel. The goal of this trip is, from their standpoint, is to have you either decide to monetarily support Israel after, or politically support Israel, or best of all, make Aliyah and move to Israel. So my friend Connor invited me to go. The whole trip they just tried to ingrain in you, how wonderful the state of Israel is, how wonderful it is, that Jews have the state of Israel, and just really never offer you any perspective, any Palestinian perspective. You wouldn't have to know that, like 10 miles away from your lush hotel where there was these, beautiful grass and swimming pools and fountains, etc., were people living under a military occupation where they hardly have access to water, live on $2 a day.
On a wagon bound for market lies a calf with a mournful eye. High above him there's a swallow winging swiftly through the sky. How the winds are laughing, they laugh with all their might. When I was in Israel with my youth program, part of what we did was we met with a whole group of Arab Israelis as well. I think they were from Nazareth. And we got into groups and we were just talking about politics and we were talking about our history. And this is my grandfather. That you can see the concentration camp number right there on his arm. I'm the granddaughter of both 2 Holocaust survivors and a Nazi soldier. I always used to identify with being the victim. And I used to identify mostly with the Jewish side. If I'm my ancestors, I am as much the aggressor in this issue as I was the victim. And that really makes me think about where does this evil come from. This young guy was describing what had happened to his grandmother. She was pulled out of her home forcibly by the Israeli army. And I was listening to his story and others of their stories of what had happened to their family members. And it just dawned on me all of a sudden that these stories sound just like the stories that I have about my grandmother and what she did and how she was hiding behind a trash can while her brother was being shot. And it just dawned on me that we have the same kind of stories and we have the same kind of feelings about these stories. We're all equally upset about it. And then I also realized that these stories are still going on and they're still being created right now. And they're going to be around for generations and generations. And that makes me really sad and also angry and also really wanting to do something.
So I started doing stuff with other Jews around Israel and Palestine, which primarily involved going to rallies that the Jewish Community Relations Council organized in support of Israel with signs talking about how we were Jews against the occupation.
I made these flyers that were like, "Hi, I'm an American Jew, and I oppose the occupation, and this is why," and I was giving them out to people.
And it was really eye-opening, because here are all these people who in my mind look like these totally stereotypical Ashkenazi grandmother types who were giving me the finger and swearing at me and spitting at me and pushing my male friends who I'm with.
I got there and people would smile at me and welcome me in because I was standing over there on their side, and then I give them the flyer. They'd be like, "Oh, thanks," and then they'd take one glance at it and rip it up. A woman this woman who, you know, she looked like my auntie. She could have been my auntie. She like shielded her daughter away from me. Another girl spit on me. I was just like, what is going on here? And it was like horror. I mean, I burst out crying like then and there. I was just like, this is not what I'm trying to do.
The assaults that I've experienced in the past years has come primarily from the Jewish right. And they've been largely connected to the critique that we at Tikkun have put forward of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and our support for a peace perspective in Israel. I get death threats almost every day on my telephone or on my email or in letters.
An Olive on the Seder Plate is a multimedia performance about the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. It's written by Jews for Jews. The reason being that we wanted to acknowledge and address people's real fears and also to create a safe space for people to say, we're Jewish, we're proud to be Jewish, but we do not support the occupation.
We got to see Ariel Sharon speak, and my friend spoke truth to power and called Mr. Sharon out on his shit and, you know, told him he was a murderer. It was just really gross to see so many people's reactions. Like, a lot of the people that go on Birthright are just New York Jews. I'm a New York Jew, you know, but these are people who just, like, they wanted to kill us, literally. They were, you know, wanted to spit in our faces, scream at us, punch us, you know, and it was just really incredible to see how strongly people reacted to such a thing, and that, you know, these people could have, you know, would probably assume, you know, before we said such a thing, oh, these are my allies, you know, these are New York Jews, or I don't know. But it was just the whole thing of how they would call us self-hating Jews, and just assume, of course, that since we didn't like Sharon, we had to like Arafat, and or support suicide bombings, and just kind of that there could be no diversity of thought is either like, you know, how our man Bush says, you're either with the terrorist or against the terrorist. You had to either be totally for Israel and support it gung-ho, or you're a self-hating Jew and just, you know, you're supporting suicide bombing.